To some, talking about failure in a video like this might seem like an odd thing to do, but to me it really resonates. I learn a lot from other people's failures, and I really appreciate it when people talk about it. So I thought I'd try doing that myself today, and I'll be talking about probably two failures. The first one that I'm going to be talking about is a level winding system for a bobbin, an electric spinning wheel. Now, I've done several videos about this, and basically what it is it's a system that tries to fill up a bobbin automatically without the user having to move the yarn guide hooks like this. So how could you do that? There's several ways that I've tried it. I've done well over 10 different prototypes for this now, and I've done several videos on YouTube about it. But one of the ones that I've tried is I've tried to just move the hook back and forth. Another one I've tried is to move the bobbin back and forth. And I've also tried moving the flyer while keeping the other parts of the system in place. And they all have pros and cons, and I'm not going to sort of go over that too much today, but what I will say today is after all of those different prototypes, I'm still not completely happy with the solution, but the way I view it is each of those has been a learning experience, and if I hadn't gone through all of those, I wouldn't have all of that extra information. So even though they haven't really worked out very well, I feel like I'm closer to a solution. I'm going to keep working on this and see if I can come up with something that's, better and less expensive than anything else on the market. And I think I can, but it's not easy. And it's a thing where I'm going to fail a lot at it as I go along, but that really helps me get to the end goal of, a really awesome product. And this is something that I'll keep working on in the background. When I have some extra time to do designs, a new prototype, I'll try it out. And if there's a really interesting one, even if it's not really great, I'll make another video about it. And hopefully that can, even if I don't end up taking enough time to solve it, maybe somebody else will sort of pick up the work and solve the problem. I think it's a really cool thing. And I think that, the existing solution is, everybody kind of who is into spinning and spinning wheels knows that the woolly winder is really the only solution. And there's several pros and cons. I won't go through those in this video, but I think that it can be done better. And, that's really my goal. So now I'll move on to the second example of failure that I wanted to talk about in this video. But before I do that, I want to give a little bit of background about fiber festivals to people who attend them but are not vendors there. So the biggest two festivals out on the East Coast are Rhinebeck and Maryland Sheep and Wool. And both of these festivals work this way. And I assume that, most of them, I know that many others do, but I really haven't investigated fiber festivals on the West Coast, so I can't speak with direct knowledge of those. But the way they typically work out here is vendors from previous years are automatically accepted into the festival the next year. So what that means is that there's some reliability. People who find vendors that they like, they're probably going to be at the festival the next year, and they're going to probably be in the same area. So that's really good from that perspective. The problem with this system, and it's not something I think I would change. I just, highlight the pros and cons. And the con here is that means that with not many vendors leaving, that when new vendors want to come in, there's lots of really interesting new vendors competing for just a few new openings. And that means that all of the interesting new vendors aren't going to be able to get into a festival. So it's like super competitive. You have to send in these portfolios sort of explaining your products and why that they're a good match for each festival. And I send in a lot of photos and stuff. I try to create really good portfolios of my company when I make the application. And I made that application to Rhinebeck last year, and it was accepted. I wasn't really expecting that. It was great news, and the festival was really amazing for my company. Like, we sold a lot of the electric eel wheel nanos, but equally important, or maybe even more important, I got to talk to a lot of my existing customers about pros and cons that they saw with the existing products and sort of get ideas for future products. And I just talked to a lot of people who had never heard of the electric eel wheel and got insight from them. It was a really great experience overall. And while I was there, I talked to a lot of the staff and to other vendors and got a real good feel for sort of why I might have been accepted. And that was great insight. I mean, it just comes down to really having an interesting product that was pretty unique among spinning company or among the fiber industry. So that's why most other vendors and the people on the staff sort of thought that I would have been accepted in my first year. So that was good insight. And I thought it was really helpful and useful information when applying to future festivals. So with that success at Rhinebeck, I made up an application for Maryland with a lot more confidence. Now, I didn't let it go to my head. I didn't assume I was going to get into Maryland. I made a really good portfolio and, application for the acceptance committee at Maryland, and put a lot more time into that one actually than I did into Rhinebeck because I thought I had a better chance at Maryland. So fast forward to after they had reviewed the application and I got rejected. And when I was rejected, they sent this letter, and I'll actually put a link to this because, like I said, I think that failure is a great way to learn. So I thought I'd share this letter with the community. It's just a generic letter, and it says a bunch of things that a company might be able to do to get better. And the first reading, I was like, yeah, I'm doing most of this. But I read it a little closer a second time, and I'm like, well, actually, I could probably improve on a few of these things. So I think it's actually a really useful letter, especially if you haven't put a lot of thought into applying, or maybe you've never, you're thinking about being a vendor at some fiber festival, even a smaller one. You still usually have to apply, and you can put together a really solid proposal. I know I started at a smaller festival in Springfield, Massachusetts, and I put together, a really good application, I thought. But after I talked to people there, I was able to make a much better proposal when I first applied to Rhinebeck. And I thought my Maryland proposal was even better than the Rhinebeck proposal. But like I said, it's like super competitive getting into these really big fiber festivals. So you really need to do a good job. And I think that sort of seeing their suggestions from the acceptance committee, even though they're kind of generic, is still useful. You can go through them and make sure you nail each one. And that's why I'm going to share this letter with people. It's, not addressed to me or anything. So I think that it's useful information to anybody who's thinking about being a vendor at any fiber festival. I mean, I guess that's a failure because I wasn't accepted, but it really invigorates this drive. It gives us this allure of exclusivity. So I'm going to apply again next year. And anybody who was hoping I would be at Maryland in 2020, I'm sorry, I didn't get accepted, but I'll try to get in 2021. And I think I can do an even better proposal next year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll make it in 2021. So hopefully these examples on failure were sort of enlightening to sort of my mindset and why it's, failures just means that you're trying to do hard things, in my opinion, and you can learn from it and make yourself better going forward. Thanks for watching.